Um, uh, Again, across the dais, both sides of the aisle, a lot of questions on the origins of COVID and finding out the origins and how that could better lead to both protecting against spillover and wildlife trade, but also increased biosafety standards. As you sit here today, is it possible that COVID-19 was the result of a laboratory-related accident?
Oh, absolutely. And like I mentioned multiple times, I keep an open mind. I feel, based on the data that I have seen, that the more likely, not definitive, but the more likely explanation is a natural spillover from an animal reservoir. But since there has not been definitive proof one way or the other, we have to keep an open mind that it could be either.
And based on that answer, I think, is the hypothesis that COVID-19 accidentally leaked from a lab a conspiracy theory?
No, I mentioned that several times. Conceptually, the concept of it is not a conspiracy theory.
We've talked a little bit about the proximal origin of SARS-CoV-2, the paper authored by Dr. Anderson. It came to two primary conclusions, and I'm quoting, "Our analysis clearly show that SARS-CoV-2 is not a laboratory construct or a purposefully manipulated virus, and we do not believe that any type of laboratory-based scenario is plausible." Do you disagree with those conclusions?
I think, Mitch, if I'm not mistaken, I don't have the paper in front of me, I think they also said the possibility of if you passaged it, you could have done that. And if you passage it, it's in a lab. So it is, I mean, that could be.
And they dispelled that at the end with we do not believe that any type of laboratory-based scenario is plausible. So I ask again, is a laboratory-based scenario plausible?
Well, I mean, again, I don't want to speak for what they meant in that paper, but I have said multiple times, I keep an open mind that it could be either a laboratory leak or it could be what I think the data is leaning towards mostly, which is a natural occurrence from an animal reservoir.
And this email was brought up too on April 16th, 2020. Dr. Collins wrote to you and said, wondering if there's something NIH can do to help put down this very destructive conspiracy, referencing the lab leak. I hope the Nature Medicine article on the genomic sequence of SARS-CoV-2 would settle this, but probably didn't get much visibility. Anything more we can do? The next day, you were at a White House press conference and cited Proximal Origin and said that Proximal Origin established that COVID-19, quote, is totally consistent with a jump of a species from an animal to human. Did anyone tell you to cite Proximal Origin from the White House podium?
No, it was in response, I believe, to a question that might have been asked by a reporter, but I wasn't stimulated to say that at all. I was responding to a question.
At that time, back in April of 2020, was it also your belief that a lab leak was possible?
Yeah, I've always had an open mind about it.
And then I want to correct the record again a little bit on the drafting and publication of the Proximal Origin paper. Did Dr. Anderson send you drafts to review?
He sent drafts, but I'm going to jump ahead of you, if I might, dribble around. I did not edit it. It was mentioned by a few of the congressmen. I did not edit the paper.
And I appreciate that. I just wanted to get on the record.
Right.
I want to talk about Dr. Morens and what you wrote in your opening testimony and some of the answers that you gave today. And just for clarity, you were, in addition to being unaware of his use of personal email and potentially intentionally deleting federal records, were you also unaware of his actions to assist Dr. Daszak and EcoHealth?
I was aware of his friendship. I was not aware of his attempts to assist him to respond to an NIH inquiry.
So not aware of the editing of press releases or editing of letters?
No, I was not.
On November 11th, 2021, Dr. Morens wrote in an email to Dr. Daszak that he attempted to discuss the EcoHealth grant with you, and you, quote, got upset and told him to have no more communications with Peter. Why did you tell Dr. Morens to no longer communicate with Dr. Daszak?
Because I think it's inappropriate to do what he did. I mean, and your committee has called him out very definitively about that, and it was inappropriate to do that.
This is back in 2021. Right. What did you know about what he was doing then?
I didn't know exactly what he was doing, but I don't think it's inappropriate for people to be communicating and helping a grantee in a response. I didn't know exactly what he was doing, but I didn't think it was appropriate.
When did you testified to Chairman Griffith, or excuse me, Chairman Comer, that you knew about the compliance issues later on with EcoHealth? When did you first become aware?
I became aware during briefings by my staff in preparation for congressional hearings well after the fact where the compliance issues actually happened. And I didn't know, as I mentioned to you in the TI pitch, I didn't even know the grant existed before the outbreak. And then finally, when there was this issue about congressional hearings, I needed to know, what is this grant? What are we doing with it? And are there any issues? That's when they said there was a compliance problem of the 4th year versus the 5th year progress report.
Some of the other